celebrating the life of Ralph Hilgendorf. On behalf of the Hilgendorf family, the Twin Cities Friends meeting, Prospect Hill meeting. And I had the thought when I picked up the program, that quickened my sense that Ralph is here with us also. Glad to see us and looking forward to being in community with us during this hour. I'm Frank Wood and will co-clerk the meeting with Michael Russell. We're members of Prospect Hill meeting and longtime friends of the Hilgendorf family. Today's memorial meeting will follow the practice of the Religious Society of Friends, Quakers. In a typical meeting for worship, friends gather in silence, prepared to be led by the Spirit of God. No special clergy preside over the meeting. It is our experience that the Spirit may speak through anyone present. When we feel led to speak, we rise and speak the message we are called upon to share with the assembled meeting. Friends surround the spoken words with periods of silence. The periods of silence are part of the ministry and allow us to understand more fully the import and meaning of these messages for us. Michael?
Now, most of the messages in a memorial meeting relate to the person that we're celebrating and who's passed. So it's a little different than a meeting for worship, but we still call it a meeting for worship with a memorial meeting for worship. And of course, our hearts are full and neither laughter nor tears are out of place here. Reflections of wisdom for your own lives, sayings from the gospel, songs, poetry, and of course, Ralph's stories are all things that we welcome. And these will all be part of the fabric of the memories we weave together here. All who are present, even if you're not Quakers, you're in a Quaker meeting and you can feel free to participate. Two friends, Marianne Crawley and Anne Suplee, will handle the microphones. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand or stand if you're able and wait till one of them comes over. When you get the microphone, hold it by the handle and point it toward your mouth, and then go ahead and speak slowly and distinctly because we're being translated for those who can't hear us. Or, yeah, for those who can't hear us. So we will hold some silence between our messages as we do in meeting for worship, which means that perhaps Anne or Marianne will come over next to you and wait a little bit before handing you the microphone. So that gives a little more time for silence. Please speak only once and try to keep your message short enough so that all can participate. We're recording this memorial meeting at the request of the family. Some people are participating remotely. As you can see a few images up there, including Ralph's wife, Kay, and daughter, Cherry. So please be sure to greet them after the rise of meeting by going over toward the screen where you can still be seen by the camera, which is right here, and saying hello to them. After the rise of meeting and during the remainder of time that we have available, please take some time to write memories on the cards next to the screen, or if you're visiting remotely, in the chat, and also share with one another stories that we haven't heard here today. There will be plenty of them. And continue to celebrate Ralph's life, going out that door to eat ice cream, drink root beer, and eat some of the world's best organic corn chips. If you don't know about them, you're in for a treat. This portion of the service is expected to last a little more than an hour. And at the end of meeting Frank will shake hands with people around him, and we invite you to either greet your neighbor orally or with a handshake. And then we will be slowly leaving this room. Now, we'll begin this memorial meeting for worship with attention to Ralph Hilgendorf's life and legacy. As the Veterans for Peace honor Ralph for his work and dedication to peace and justice with a bell ringing ceremony.
Hi, it's good to be among friends. It's an honor for us to be here. Thank you, David, for inviting us. And at Veterans for Peace, we ring the bells in honor of that time when peace fell upon the battlefields in France and after the awful war of World War I. And whenever an Armistice Day, we call it Armistice Day, on Memorial Day, we ring our bells 11 times. But when we lose one of our cohorts, and Ralph was a member of Vets for Peace associate, we always ring the bells 10 times. So the 11th bell, the rung is for the bell ringer who's not with us anymore. So I have Shante Wolf and Barry Reese from our chapter. Thank you.
Do you want to speak? Okay. Go closer to the center so people can see. So I would step up there. Just don't. And look, after you get started, I will signal if you're audible or not. My name is Ralph Jacobson. I'm a longtime member of the Twin Cities Friends meeting and member of the Prospect Hill Friends meeting, both meetings which Ralph was a part of. I'm going to start the ball rolling by remembering Ralph for his courage. The many times that he demonstrated that, the one that stands out for me is one time when he was telling us about helping a young man who had newly become blinded to learn how to trust the stick and walk down the sidewalk. And as Ralph described, helping the young man overcome his fear, it really came home to me what courage it takes just to step out your front door. You know, and have that stick. When there are so many people who are not paying attention, who can see out there that you're stepping into. So I appreciate Ralph for demonstrating courage in so many ways for so many people.
So my name is George Crocker. Whatever else Ralph was, he was an enabler. How many people did Ralph enable to reach their best and most worthy selves? Friend School. All of the children that went through the Hilgendorf household. All of the people that he worked with at the Society for the Blind, Ralph enabled all of them. He enabled me. He enabled the North American Water Office to do the things that we did that maybe, just maybe, will allow humanity to have a fighting chance as climate chaos ravages the planet. So thanks, Ralph, for enabling us.
It started in a mid-December snowstorm. I have to see the words. So sorry. It started in a mid-December snowstorm. Snowed in their home down on the old farm. The doctors couldn't make it, but his aunts could. When the newborn baby squalled, they knew that he was good. He took to learning all the skills of farm life. Building, fixing, tilling, planting, sharp knife. He walked for miles to reach the one-room schoolhouse. They called him curly girly, but his smile they could not douse. Now he's got all the keys of the piano in years, though he no longer sees. He's let go of his fears. He's been a happy man since he walked down the aisle. When he gets home, he whistles and he wears a big smile. One day they say the cattle broke the fence gate. Go up high and find them, for it's too late. So he climbed into his Piper for a new flight. He lost control and crashed it, losing all of his sight. It was a major turning. The plane was left burning when he moved to the city. Some said, oh, what a pity. At 17, he lost his eyes. His photography had to die. Something new was born that day. He learned he had so much to say. Thanks for the lifeguard at the swimming pool. Thanks for our children that were born to her. Thanks for our spiritual community. Thanks for the moments of epiphany. Thanks. He walked to work a mile every weekday, By night, he served on boards to make the world a better place. He fixed cars, the plumbing, and he added light. Like stars, his eyes come out at night. He built his daughter's house in Arizona. His lone reward, a bottle of Corona. He hiked to Phantom at the canyon's floor. On the way back up, he said the journey is the reward. Now he's got all the keys of the piano in years, though he no longer sees. He's let go of his fears. He's been a happy man since he walked down the aisle. And then he gets home, he whistles, and he wears a big smile. I said, thanks, Dad, for sending us to Scattergood. Thanks, Dad, for teaching us to love wood. Thanks, Dad, for all your positivity. Thanks, Dad, for all your belief in me. There's so many thanks that I could give. Yes, but I give thanks for you now. Thanks, Dad. Thanks.
My name is James Fletcher, and I had the privilege of working in the same building as Ralph from 1977 to 1980. The first time I saw Ralph, he was walking down the hallway and he almost bumped into me. And I quickly became oriented into share the presence of other people who may be sight or hearing impaired. Ralph taught me, he taught many brothers and sisters who are sighted and can hear well, please see other people with your heart. Please hear other people with your heart. That is the gentleness of the Holy Spirit. And I thank you for all my brothers and sisters in this room, because I'm sure your heart already knows. Thank you. Thank you, Ralph.
This is Monty Williams from Grand Rapids, Michigan. It's so good to see friends today and brings back many memories. My first memory of Ralph and Kay was when they pulled into family fall camp held just west of the Twin Cities. And my wife and I were greeting people in the parking lot. And I think I'd never seen a happier family. Kay was driving, of course, and Ralph was in the passenger seat and the kids were in the back. And I have many fond memories of being with Ralph's family during camps, both family fall camp and people camp. It was good to see some pictures today of people camp. That brought back a lot of nice memories. I was just reflecting that I never thought of Ralph as blind or disabled, even though he was. And I believe it's because he never acted like he was disabled. He did help enable so many people, as George Crocker talked about in what he said. And he always had courage, as Ralph Jacobson referred to. So he was a great leader. He never let his disability stop him from anything. And he was always a warrior for peace. So even though he believed in nonviolence, he was on the front lines fighting for peace all the time. Love you, Ralph.
So speaking of people camp, I have to give Ralph great credit for my deep knowledge of the Bible, because sitting in the sauna at people camp, he taught me the 5 constipated men of the Bible. And so I know a lot more about the Bible than I did previously. Thanks, Ralph. You made me laugh.
Maybe I might be chickening out, but yeah, I'll try.
Stand up again.
He's out.
Ralph and I would drive up to people camp often together with his big van. So it gave us 3 hours both ways to really have great conversations. Many people have commented on Ralph's map sense, and that was always a delight traveling with him. Wherever we went, I'd say, well, Ralph, we're turning left here, Little Falls is up ahead. Oh, and then he would have a long conversation about Lindbergh being born in Little Falls and everything about the town, or if we're traveling by Minnehaha Falls to get to a meeting, I'd say, we're turning this intersection. He said, oh yeah, there's a great house up ahead. I used to, he knew in his mind the map. He could see it in his mind. And that word is one of the great things about Ralph. He knew very well the attitudes that were there about blindness. And he would always begin conversations with people with, I see. And it wouldn't be just, I see that the twins finally broke 500. And it would be much more detailed, like, I see they finally got 8 Mill Road fixed. It was such a mess driving that road and having to dodge all those potholes. Or I see that the wind has finally shifted, and the air isn't quite so polluted from all that smoke. But weren't those sunrises and sunsets beautiful? And it was very intentional. If you had lost sight, it really inspired people. And it also told the rest of us that there was so much more to perception than just the visual images hitting our retina. And with regard to People Camp and the sauna at People Camp that Mari Bartu Jacobson just shared, the sauna was legendary at the People Camp we were at, and Ralph was certainly one of the people that was there. So I wrote a song about the sauna, and of course, central to it was the verse about Ralph. Well, just like old King Cole, with his pipe and his bowl, Brother Ralph claims his throne and begins holding court, with no clothes on at all and his back to the wall, while his courtiers and courtesans kvetch and cavort. Then adjusting his paunch, while the good king will launch into telling bad jokes, both off color and lame. But his subjects don't mind, 'cause you see, Ralph is blind. And for him, they suppose every color's the same. In the sauna, take a seat in the heat near the flame. Once you've gone and taken sauna, life will never again be the same. Where we all sing along to those great movement songs, though we only recall the refrains. So those discordant fauna that dwell in the sauna, they sing them again and again.
Hi, my name's Kathy. Uh-oh, there's my peace. My name's Kathy. I lost my peace sign necklace for a minute, Ralph. Ralph was my supervisor at State Services for the Blind, like from 1980 to 1990. And as in the lyrics of his son, I felt like Ralph believed in me and believed in what I had to do. Along with my friend Carol here, we had an idea about providing homemaker groups to older men and women who were blind. And in the services for the blind vocational rehab world, these people were considered homemakers. And, oh, can you not hear? They were considered homemakers. And so it was unique that we were able to provide really extended services for them. We had groups in church basements, and the men and women learned how to cook and sign their names and socialize with each other. It was really a highlight of my 47 years so far, because I'm still working part-time in the field of blindness. And as I say, it stemmed from Ralph believing in what we had to do. It was a unique idea at the time. So salute Ralph, and I'm still doing it. I'm still working. So thank you.
I have so many memories of Ralph at People Camp, but I'd like to relate a story or a recollection of when I was over at the house and seeing Ralph fixing the plumbing. And here I am a person with sight, and I wouldn't have any idea how to do that. He did electrical. I mean, he did things that I just was amazed at. And another joy was at People Camp, we have the 3 different groups, and there are certain ages that are designated for the certain groups. But my daughter, who was about 2 or 3 years older than her chronological age, petitioned to be able to be in the older group. And there was a meeting, a gathering, and Ralph carried the day. My daughter got in the older group.
Where's the center? Where's the place that I can contribute the most? Was a question that Ralph asked and answered very well. Often at camp, at the end of the day, the sauna was the center with the singing, the jokes, the conversation, just the joy of being in community would happen. And it felt right that Ralph was often right there, right in the middle of what we were celebrating, what we were enjoying. One of the beauties of camp is that rather than hiring local teenagers at minimum wage to wash our dishes or take care of the children or clean the bathrooms, as soon as you walked into camp, you would sign up for what you were going to do that week. And it helped us be a lot more of a community. After meals, the most concentrated energy in camp would be in the kitchen, washing the dishes. And in one corner were a couple people making sure the dishwasher, which was kind of slow, was filled and the dishes were moving along and getting dried and put away. And inches from that was a big sink with a ton of dirty pots and pans, and Ralph washing away, making sure those greasy pots and pans got clean and put back on the shelf for the next meal. Where's the center? Where's the middle of what we're doing? Ralph was very good at knowing where his center was and where our center is. Thank you, Ralph.
My name is Cara Mccutchen Rodriguez. And I frankly hadn't intended to speak today, but Manuel Rodriguez just made it very clear that he expected me to say something on his behalf. In 1983, Manuel kind of collapsed under some bushes at the cathedral in Minneapolis, looking for anybody that he thought might speak Spanish. And eventually, through word of mouth and friends, he came to be in sanctuary with the Quakers in St. Paul, and eventually living in Ralph and Kay's home for a while, which was heaven for him. He considered Ralph and Kay his American parents. They provided such trust and such peace for him. And this man, from the age of 8, had been homeless until he joined the military in El Salvador and had been part of the most horrendous elements of the unrest in El Salvador and came on foot up here. So that place and that sanctuary for him meant so much that he just, basically shook me inside and said, "You need to thank them for me." And so that's what I'm doing. And because he was there and he later became my husband, I was frequently in her home, and I gave this story, posted this story on Facebook when I heard that Ralph had died, because the one that stood out to me was coming in there one day and Ralph was systematically cleaning all the windows that faced the street in their home. And I was a little taken aback and impressed, not only was he being so diligent about it, that he was doing a damn good job, probably better than I would do. And it's also an element of him to do something that was definitely not for his own benefit, which is something that he did all the time. So what a human being. Muchas gracias, Ralph.
I knew Ralph from many of the peace and justice places around that he would attend, whether it was demonstrations or marches, or I met him several times at Fort Benning, and I was a participant at the Lake Street Vigil for many, many years, and I knew Ralph there. And he often would come with his friend Len Jackson that would give him a ride. And one day Ralph didn't show up. I said to Len, I said, "Well, where's Ralph?" And he said, "Well, he's boxing." And I said, "Well, I wouldn't put it past him." And what that meant to them was that in the spring he would go around and pick up boxes for the plant sale for the friend's house. That was then he referred to it as boxing. So, and Ralph had a great sense of humor, and he loved to laugh, and there were, when Ralph would show up, times got kind of long on the bridge, but they always passed fast when Ralph was there. My hometown is Sleepy Eye, Minnesota, which is just north of Fairmont, where Ralph. So we would always talk about that area and farming, and Bernie Bierman, who he knew, I think, and But he told me one time that he had received, I don't know, 40 or something honorary degrees. And I says, oh, Ralph, you get all those letters behind your name, all these BA and MA and PhD and SOB. And that just broke him up. He had a big laugh about that. Anyway, he was great and a real inspiration to everybody there. So.
I'm Josine, and I met Ralph at People Camp. And we would sing there, but not with the microphone. And I was in the sauna with him and just in spirit with him and meeting his family and his grandchildren and just the delight of Ralph and his legacy I got to know. And so I want to sing a song for him because that's the spirit I know him in. So when we were born, we cried, and the world rejoiced. Live your life so that when you die, the world cries and you rejoice, rejoice, rejoice. Thank you, Ralph.
My name is April Greybrook, and I am Ralph's oldest granddaughter. I have two very short stories. One is road trips with Grandpa. Maphead was a great name. Going to the family farm was a regular occurrence, and there was always a discussion briefly between the adults as we were leaving which road to take, which one was flooded, which one was being repaired from pick your natural disaster. And it was still awesome because Grandpa would fall asleep and then he'd wake up and know what town we were outside of and where the Dairy Queen was. Every time. And it was always within 10 minutes. And this was amazing as a kid. And then I just took my own son to Minneopa State Park in Mankato and realized that there is a town every 15 minutes on the way down, and they all have a Dairy Queen. It was slightly less amazing. However, he always knew the name of the town, and he'd been sleeping in the car for however long. So it it did become a little more amazing again. But he always knew where the Dairy Queen was. And sometimes if we were really good and lucky, we got ice cream twice because we'd stop on the way home. My second story is really more of a Leif story. So Leif is my son and the only great-grandchild at the moment. And Leif really loved his great-grandpa. And right as hospice is happening, one of Leif's fish died. And it was very, very sad, which was strange because Leif was never really sad when the fish died because they're just fish. And like with all things, we gave him the choice of flushing the fish or putting it back out in nature. And Leif chose to put it out in nature. And then Grandpa dies. And we talk about he's, no longer in pain. And he knew that Grandpa's body was going to the University of Minnesota. And he was very excited because he gets to go live with Goldie Gopher now. So I said in a moment of trying to make sure that Leif was feeling okay about this fish, well, maybe the fish is with Grandpa or with Grandpa instead of great grandpa. And so I said, oh, maybe the fish went to be with great grandpa. And a couple of minutes later, Leif says, I don't know, Mom, I don't think the bird would know where to go. I'm like, birds, okay, what, can you tell me more? Well, where would the bird bring the fish? And what building is Grandpa in? And I don't think the bird that ate the fish is going to know which building to poop on. So you'll meet Leif later, but that was the impact that Grandpa had on our family. Is he was just a part of our lives and a very safe and wonderful experience for all of us.
So my name is Per Greybrook. I'm married into the family relatively in the twilight of Ralph's life. But I remember growing up with the family, having known it since I was 13 years old. And hearing all these stories about Ralph, about the Dairy Queen adventures, going down to the farm, about how he would put his glass eyes in the Halloween dish bowl to scare the local kids when they came up for candy. All these stories growing up of Ralph. So I knew about Ralph, but as I said, I married into the family relatively late in Ralph's life. By that point, his memory was beginning to go, and he wasn't always sure who I was exactly. But the one thing about Ralph is I always felt welcome in the family. He always went out of his way to make me feel as if I had a new family, that the family that I married into was part of my own. Even if he didn't always knew who I was. And that is what I will always remember about Ralph.
Hi, it's Mina Learwood. It's really great to be here with everyone. I've been flooded with memories of Ralph because of growing up in the orbit of the Hilgendorf home and being good friends with the Hilgendorf kids, all grown up. Great to see you all. So Ralph was really funny, and he always had this way of, like, you know, the punchline or the zinger, especially in unexpected situations. He was very intuitive, and I think his humor was very close to the spirit. I remember these are just a couple of small things, like at People Camp, you know, during the performance, like we had the talent show at the end of the week, and then a storm was raging outside, and all of a sudden there's a clap of thunder and all the lights go out, and, you know, everyone's like, and then Ralph says, and now we're all equal. And another time when the meeting house on Grand was being renovated to become a meeting house, and we were kind of in between the meeting house on Summit Avenue. I grew up as a Quaker in the Twin Cities Friends meeting. The meeting house on Summit Avenue, the meeting house on Grand, and there was just like a platform where the meeting room was going to be, and there was no walls or anything. It was just being built. And we were meeting at the McAllister Chapel, but something went wrong and we couldn't get into it, or it was under construction, or it was closed. So the entire meeting like moved across the street, like sat on the platform, like in nature, and just had a Quaker meeting there, because of course, it doesn't matter where you are. If there's two people gathered, or if there's one person gathered, you can listen to the silence. And anyway, we were all having a beautiful Quaker meeting in this, I think it was springtime for some reason. And at the end, Ralph said, and if we knew you were coming, we'd have baked a cake. He just always had like these really funny lines, but a lot of them I think came out of the silence. And I have this other memory of him, which is very odd, but it was at a weird time in my life because I was on reality TV. And I was telling him about my experience of being sent as a peacenik to a military family and living with a military family right near Fort Knox, and how the TV crew organized a peace vigil. And I'm sure they thought it was kind of going to be funny. They did invite, to their credit, they invited the Vets for Peace. So there's 3 Vets for Peace there, and me, the Quaker peacenik. And then the families that lived in this area that were, you know, a lot of them were military families. And it was in a very conservative place near Louisville, Kentucky. And anyway, the conversation in the circle, this peace vigil that we had, got around to someone asked me about being a Quaker. And I said, well, the best way to understand what being a Quaker is to have a Quaker meeting. So I said, why doesn't this neighbor of yours, one of the neighbors was like a preacher, why doesn't he lead us in a prayer, and then we'll have a Quaker meeting? And I was relating this story to Ralph. And it was really funny because as soon as this very long prayer happened, and then we had dead silence, and everyone, I'm sure, in the room was expecting me to interrupt the silence, and I just didn't want to interrupt it. I wanted to have the silence as long as possible. And the cameras were rolling, of course, not knowing what to listen to or where to watch. But it was a very long silence. And Ralph, as I told him this story, he said, and that was the most important moment of your journey. Because everyone is equal. In the silence, there's no judgment. He was a very wise person, so he was a very helpful and wise mentor. So thank you, Ralph. I'm very grateful.